For the first time since 1961, they would miss the finals, finishing 2 games back in 5th place. And many look back on an era that was unfulfilled. Pianto, the Victorian coach in 1970, was replaced in 1971 by former premiership teammate Bill McMaster, but the slide continued, turning into a free-fall. In 1971, Billy Goggin retired after a club record 248 games. With Farmer, he had starred in one of the most famous ruck and rover partnerships in league history.
When you're playing, you just play from, week by week and just go along with it. But yeah, look, as you're getting near the end of your career and you're not going to be much longer before you're finishing, of course you cherish those things.
His place at the helm would be taken by Wade, the 187-game veteran who had long been the understudy.
I was deputy assistant vice-captain to Polly. I then became assistant deputy captain. Then I became a deputy vice-captain. I became vice-captain, and it was just a natural thing that I would become captain.
Wade's tenure would be one of the shortest in the club's proud history. After just 1 year, he would be lured by big money and an instant clearance under the ill-fated 10-year rule. He'd swap the blue bands of Geelong for the blue stripes of North Melbourne.
I remember him coming back after a meeting with the powers that be at North Melbourne with, I think he had $10,000 in a paper bag. And he said, "Look at that." And I said, "Good God, Doug." He said, "I'm going to North." I said, "I wouldn't blame you." I said, "I couldn't come along from the ride, could I?"
Wade left a magnificent record at Geelong. 208 games, 834 goals, the century in 1969, and in 11 of his 12 seasons he was the leading goal kicker. To compound the Cats' woes, Bill Ryan would leave too after 167 games. 2 poor seasons spelt the end for McMaster. The club would again look to Graham Farmer for the success they craved.
Polly wasn't a good coach because I would say, and I don't think I would be either, I would say you have to have one thing in coaching. You've got to communicate with people, and Polly was very short on people who didn't have the same desire, the same capacity and the same instinct as him to want to be competitive. And we had a lot of scrubbers in our side in the mid-70s. Not scrubbers as blokes, just scrubbers as footballers who had the wrong attitude. And he only ever spoke to about half a dozen of the players. He just couldn't put up with the attitude of players who wouldn't act as though they were professionals.
Farmer was no saviour. In 1973, Geelong slumped to 11th, winning just 6 matches. When the great Geelong captains gathered a couple of years ago, a few just stood out. Fred Flanagan, the elder statesman of the club, and still a devoted fan nearly 50 years after leading his side to back-to-back flags. Graham Farmer, arguably the greatest ruckman who ever played, and his apprentice John Newman, who would take over the rucking responsibility, and in 1974 the captaincy under Farmer the coach.
Did we have any success under you as captain?
No, I was, well, you'd have to ask Paul, did we have any success when he was the coach? I was the captain when Paul was the coach.
Oh, and did he give you any specific instructions?
He said, "Keep out of my way, let me run the side."
Is that right, Paul?
No, John's good in his own ways, and all John had to do was, like every other player, play well.
Among the recruits to Cardinia Park in 1974 would be Michael Turner, son of dual premiership wingman Leo, and honoured by being given his dad's old number. And in a mid-season swap, Gareth Andrews would depart for Richmond in exchange for a high-marking centre-half forward with a raking left foot by the name of Hunt, Rex Hunt.
Picked up by David Clark. He kicks up towards Rex Hunt, who has come down toward the centre of the ground. Hunt on the left foot with a big kick up toward the forward zone.
They wait for the ball to drop. In the forward pocket, punched away, came to Newman, stiffened across here to Armour, and away he goes again.
The club finished 6th in 1974. Farmer had veterans like Ian Nankervis, Ken Newland, Wayne Closter and John Scarlett. He had forwards of class in David Clark, goal sneak Paul Serra and the emerging gun forward Larry Donohue. Bruce Nankervis would win the second of his best and fairest.
Down to the ground it comes, Wilno comes out with the ball though. He kicks a long one into the forward zone. Higgins is racing for Geelong. Foley is there for Collingwood. Over they go, picked up by Sarah. Sarah kicks and he's put it through. Thompson knocks the ball back. Ball pushed back again by Geelong. Here's a go now. As Sheen gets it now, has a shot for goal. Sheen of Geelong. It's looking good. It's a goal.
After the club sank to 11th the next year, Farmer would be replaced. And for the first time since 1936, the club looked to an outsider, Rod Olson. Among Olson's first jobs was to axe Newman as captain, after it was revealed that he'd been approached to go to Richmond.
He's got it, a good hand pass over to Ian Nankervis. A chance for Nankervis to score. He fires for the goals, and it's a goal.
Olson had come from Hawthorn. He thrived on the sort of toughness that had made the Cats and the Hawks such fierce rivals in the decade past. Bruce Nankervis took over as captain.
He had a disagreement with the club and obviously decided that he was going to go elsewhere, and I was appointed captain.
Was that a surprise appointment, Bruce, in '76?
It was, because obviously John was a great player and obviously a great leader. But I mean, these things happen in football, and I was appointed captain.
With 13 wins, Geelong would finish in 4th place, and for the first time since 1969 would play in the finals. It would be an elimination final against Footscray at Waverley, and Larry Donohue made it all that more memorable by kicking his 100th goal of the season. Only the third Geelong player after Maloney and Wade to reach the mark.
And the Cats into attack. Let's see what Higgins does with it. There's his kick going down towards Donohue. There's plenty of jostling there. Donohue appeals. 2 grabs at it, and it's his. Turner going in goalwards. Donohue's in this lot there. Oh, has he marked it? Gee, that was a freak mark. There were hands everywhere. He's got enormous concentration. You can see him belting the ball into his hands, saying, is this it? Now, look, he wouldn't be any more than 30 metres out. He's directly in front. 99 goals. Can he get this one? He's kicked. I think this is it. It's through. That's his 100.
Look, Larry is a marvellous man, just a great club man and a terrific bloke. If you ever saw a more unlikely looking man that would kick 100 goals, Larry was it. But I tell you what, he got criticised a lot for his sort of softness and the fact he had no muscle tone and he was not a great player. But that's why he was a great player, because he had more courage than anyone. He's a soft, big, uneasy-looking man, clumsy, bit naive, and he took a pounding like you wouldn't believe, and to do that and kick 100 goals, he was fantastic.
The Cats beat Footscray to record their first finals win in 8 seasons, but a week later would fall to reigning premiers North Melbourne at the MCG. The following year, Newman would top Goggins' club record of games. The Cats would win the race for West Australian fullback Gary Malarkey. Ian Nankervis would win back-to-back best and fairests, and Donohue would kick 63 goals. But 8th place was not what Olson and his men were looking for. There would be marked improvement in '78, Ian replacing brother Bruce as skipper, Big Larry providing the focal point up forward as he looked set for another 100-goal year. He'd finish with 95.
Larry Donohue sets himself out towards Malarkey. Malarkey handballs on. Grabbed by Robert Neal. A lot of pace, this fellow. Robert Neal runs around the centre wing, putting the ball on the ground. Certainly the ground's not good enough to bounce today. Picked up by Woodman. Woodman handballs again over to Higgins. Higgins